All right, fellas, let's huddle up. Today, we're going to tackle the toughest opponent you've ever faced. The guy in the mirror, that voice in your head that tells you you're not good enough. Yeah, today, we're calling it out and putting it in its place. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness, everyone. We are joined by friend of the show, Dr. Frank Anderson, who is here to help us turn this self-doubt into self-discipline and show your inner critic who's boss. Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
Hey, Frank, great to see you back. For those of you who haven't ever tuned into our show before, we've had Dr. Frank Anderson on before, and it was a phenomenal episode talking about the internal family systems. And we're super excited here today to have him talking about this inner critic. That said, before we jump in, I'm just going to say, hey, I hope that you guys have got an opportunity to tune into one of our recent episodes that Will recorded interviewing me about a fitness challenge that I have, specifically a physique competition that I've signed up for in August, which scares the hell out of me. And Will is going to continue to document that for us. Yeah. And then October, 19th, in Dallas, Will and I will be doing a Spartan race. And we would love to have you guys join us. You can find out more about that here in the coming days on our website. That's mentalkingmindfulness.com. That said, I will jump in with our opening grounding practice. And it's just going to be one simple breath so that we can get into everything that Frank has to share with us today. So go ahead and get comfortable, whatever that looks like for you. And let's begin with a nice exhale, grounding our body as we're exhaling. Feeling our feet grounding into the earth beneath us. And now a nice, long, slow, deep breath in, holding at the top. And now releasing, releasing, releasing. And now bring some movement back into the body, maybe rolling the shoulders, rolling your head around. If your eyes are closed, go ahead and blink them open.
Find some testosterone.
There we are. Finding some testosterone. There you go. Well, hey, thank you all for being here, for tuning in, for sharing our podcast, helping us grow. And we're so excited. We've got a lot of things going on with the podcast here. But let's jump in. Yes. Go ahead, Will. I'd love to turn it over to you, sir.
Frank. All right. So what do we mean by inner critic? Can you just give us a little context here, a little framework we're going to talk about with this inner critic, if you will, please?
Yeah. And I want to say thanks so much for having me back, guys. It's great to be here. I always have so much fun when I'm with you, and I'm grateful to be asked back and to be able to share with your group and your listeners all the stuff that, I have that's so aligned with what you're doing. Yeah. And, for me, it's bringing trauma healing to the world. And for you, mindfulness to men is bringing trauma healing to the world. So it is an aligned vision for sure. So thank you for having me. Yeah. If we're going to talk about critics, we're talking about perpetrators.
Oh, ooh.
Okay. Sorry.
No, I'm interested.
I said that's exactly right. If we're going to talk about critics, we have to talk about perpetrators. And that's not what people want to hear. And that's not what people, but it's the reality, honestly, is that most of us hate our critics and want to get rid of them.
Right.
And when I think about critics, I'm like, oh my God, I want to help those poor little souls that are trying so hard.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's a whole different mindset around critics. And by the way, the critics in us know everybody hates them. They're like, everybody hates me. Everybody's against me. Nobody's on my side, which makes them more critical and angry.
The critic itself.
The critic itself.
Wow.
It's like, everybody fucking hates me. Why am I going to play nice here? Nobody sees my side of the story. Okay, so we're flipping the critic on its head. And when you actually start unpacking the critical energy, that didn't just come out of the blue. We learned critical energy from people who are critical with us. That's where you're not born critical. That's not how it works.
Right. It's a programming.
You absorb critical energy.
Wow.
You absorb it. Okay. This, I talked probably last time around everybody's a victim and everyone's a perpetrator. That's the reality of who we are. Sorry, but it's true. We tend to hold our victim and push our perpetrator.
Yeah.
Or we hold our perpetrator and push our victim.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to hold both. Okay.
Give us a little example of the perpetrator just for,
you worthless piece of shit.
Okay.
Don't feel this way. You're wrong. You're bad.
Boy.
Boy.
He's actually saying that to you, Will.
I know. I'm like, Jesus, Frank.
Like,
I'm brought you on the show to have a good time, and you're attacking me.
Like, damn, Frank. Damn. But you notice how that feels.
Right.
Like you're bracing,
right.
but you're absorbing it. Like, boys shouldn't be sensitive. You're supposed to be tough. Like, that's all critical energy. Right. We absorb it. Boys get a higher dose quicker than girls do.
Oh, really?
Okay, because of culture and society, boys are supposed to be tough and strong,
right.
And the critic is, girls get it later. Research shows boys get it around 8 years old. Girls get it around high school, like when they're freshman, sophomore, and they're comparing each other to all the other girls to vie for getting the boys' attention in high school where that matters, right? So boys lose their voice and internalize the critic earlier, right? Be tough, don't cry, toughen up, all the stuff, right? So
I'm guilty of that. I literally did this weekend with my little boy. Now that you say that, we went skiing, and he's 5 years old and he's carrying his skis and he's whining about it.
Yeah,
I was like, suck it up, man. You got to toughen up. And now I'm like, oh, geez, what am I doing?
You got it. What am I doing, John? Is I'm doing my best to develop my son's internal critic.
Oh, I'm the worst. And now my inner critic is coming
out. You just attacked John.
I'm the worst.
Just attacked John. There you go.
Exactly. See that? That's exactly right. It's ubiquitous. People are not aware of it. Right. You know what? I did this project. It never got off the ground with the people at Inside Out, right? The Inside Out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, we're huge fans.
We love that movie.
It's a great movie. And Amy Poehler, who plays the voice of Joy, when she did Inside Out 1, she's like, do you know how many times I told my kids, don't be sad, don't be sad. She's like, I'm playing Joy in this movie, and the hero of Inside Out 1 is sadness.
Right.
And she's herself is like, oh my God, do you know how many times I've said this?
Oh, wow.
So, John, we all do. Like, it is what we do. It's these cultural expectations and norms that we thrust upon our kids, that we learned from our parents, that are unconscious. These critical voices, women have them, men have them. They're not just men that have them. Women have them too, And so when we start unpacking our critical voice, partly why it's so painful to go there is because then we have to connect to the ways we were harmed and victimized. Okay, I'm going to say that again.
I know. Like, I don't want to go there, Frank.
Exactly. Right? If we look at our critic, which we've internalized from the way we've been treated, mostly in childhood, then we also have to look at the ways we've been harmed and hurt. Okay, so unpacking the critic is not just easy, and it's not just about the critic, because what ends up happening is the critic in us, when we absorb the energy from our parents, the critic in us looks, I'm going to use my critic, and boy, I have one. Talk to my kids. Damn, do I have one, right? When I was growing up as a kid, and I was the recipient of my dad's critical rage, I experienced how effective it was. I'm like, this shit's powerful because it's bringing me to my knees. When you experience being criticized, shamed, belittled, all of it, you know what it feels like because you're the recipient of it. A part of me then says, this shit is powerful. I'm going to use it to my advantage. I'm going to use this. And what it does is two things. One is it uses it inside to the little part of me, little Frankie, who was victimized. My critic says, don't be such a wimp. Be tough, be strong, because if you're tough and strong, he won't hurt us. So my critic tries to be critical of my traumatized part so that he'll behave and won't get us in trouble. Oh, wow. You understand that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
And anybody who threatens me or tries to attack me, I'm going to use it outside.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So our critics are both internally critical in the service of protecting us from being harmed by others.
Right.
And our critic is externally critical to protect us from other people's attacks, right? So we learn to be critical from people. We take in the perpetrator's energy and we use it to our advantage. But what does it do? It perpetuates the cycle.
Right.
So its intention is good. This is the thing, guys, that we have to do with all of our critics is appreciate the intention. You're trying to help, and maybe you're doing it in a way that might not be the most effective. I don't say that because the worst thing you do is shame a critic. It's only going to cause more critical energy.
Right.
Here's what I say with the critic in me. Where did you learn how to protect that way? That's the question. Knowing that the critic is trying to protect. If you can hold that belief, instead of hating it, like you're doing something important here. Where did you learn how to help that way? Then you open up a dialogue, a discussion with your critical voice. Then you start learning the ways it's trying to keep your pain away, keep your pain from getting in trouble, all the things it's trying to do. And then you start developing a connection with your critic. Like, oh, you're helping? Let's work together. Maybe you don't have to do this all by yourself. Then you form an alliance with your critic instead of hating it. It's a transformation. Okay? It's a transforming that critical energy, which we absorbed from our parents who were critical of us, and we're flipping it like, oh, you're trying to help? Oh, you learned how to help from mom or from dad or from the bullies on the playground? Got it. Are you interested in helping in a different way? And I'll tell you guys, these critics are like, yes. People hate us. Like, they know. Like, you know what I mean? They're like, we're trying to help and we suck at our job and everybody hates us.
Yeah.
Right? So they're interested in doing it differently, but nobody's offered them an alternative solution. Right. Nobody's ever said, let's work together. Let's do this differently.
Yeah.
Frank, have you ever met anybody that does not have that inner critic?
Nope.
So everyone has a perpetrator that kind of helped to develop that inner critic.
Yeah, like who hasn't been shamed or criticized in their life? Who hasn't? Like, I don't know anybody. I really don't. Like, seriously. I mean, some of them are much stronger than others, but everybody has a version of it because we've all been told, like, look, you're well-intended father. You're a well-intended father, and you do it to your kid because you're on the ski slope. Yeah. Like, it's so ubiquitous. It's normalized in our culture and society. Be tough, be strong. Girls, be thin and pretty. So you can get, like whatever the version is, whatever the version, guys aren't supposed to be sensitive and gentle and soft. Toughen up.
Right. Yeah.
It's just part of culture. right? It's part of culture. So everybody, and even if your parents are like awesome, you go to school.
Yeah.
And you're going to get it on the playground
from your coach or from a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So everybody gets it.
And I think coming back to that parenting example, maybe I'm just giving myself an out here, but there's also an exhaustion, that comes with being a parent.
Yes.
You're like, oh my gosh, I'm carrying all this crap and you're carrying one set of skis and you're whining. Like, please toughen up for my sake. Right?
But here's no, John. No, you cannot try to justify your critic.
Come on, Frank, give me it out.
Here's you tried. I give you an A for effort. You tried. It's more like this. It's more like, you know what? I'm sorry. I actually shouldn't have said that to you.
Mm-hmm.
And the reality is I am working really hard and I don't want to be carrying everything. And I know that we're all tired and I could really use you to step up and help out here.
I actually did say something similar
right,
to that.
Right.
Once we got into the lodge, I said, hey, buddy, I'm sorry. I'm really hard on you.
You got it.
Yeah. All right.
Third
good.
time's
So
a
I
charm.
got that.
Third time's a charm. Yeah, it's never justifiable, but it is repairable.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point. It is repairable. And I've said this, I think I've said this to you guys before, but when parents don't take responsibility for their critical behavior, kids do.
Yeah.
That's how it develops. He's like, if you didn't do the repair, John, come on, buddy, toughen up. And you don't say, hey, I shouldn't have said that. I'm sorry. Your kid's going to go like, it's my fault. I'm bad and wrong. Not my dad's bad and wrong, because he's not saying he's bad and wrong, and he's got all the power. I have to rely on him. So when we do it, and we all do it, we repair it, and then our kids don't internalize it for themselves. That's how you prevent the transgenerational critic.
Yeah, we talked about that.
We talked about that last time. Yeah.
Right. I'm calling it Cycle Breaker. This is what I'm calling my new program.
Cycle Breaker.
Cycle Breaker.
Oh, cycle. Okay, Cycle Breaker.
Not Psycho Breaker.
Psycho Breaker. Where are we going with this?
Right. Now, first you tell us we're all critics. Now you're telling me we're all psychos?
Yeah, I know. Frank's looking at clickbait. Fucking clickbait title, buddy. Psycho Breaker.
I think you should go with Psycho Breaker.
Psycho Breaker is a lot more provocative. Like Cycle Breaker. We can break the cycle.
Right. We can
break the cycle.
Right.
And you, like, when you do it, you notice that you do it, you feel bad about doing it, you repair it, and then you're like, where did this come from? Where did this voice come from? How did I do this? What is it doing to me? What's it trying to do, and what does it actually do? Because it tries to help, but it actually causes more shame.
Well, I mean, with that, are there any times that the inner critic does help?
It's always trying to help. It's always trying to help, and that's what you got to hold on to. It's like, look, if we're on time, people won't get pissed at us. That's that's
healthy.
That's how, it does try to help. If we just did the dishes every once in a while, maybe our wife wouldn't be so pissed off and she want to have sex more, whatever the hell it is. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I'm going to get laid if I do the dishes. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's
not that easy.
I'm sorry.
It doesn't work that way, huh? But they are trying. They're trying to help. You've got to hold that awareness. They're just doing it in the way they learned.
Right.
Which is critical.
Right.
They're trying to help. Like, they are useful. That's why I'm saying love up your critic. You got to love them. Like, thanks, buddy. Yeah. I get that you're trying to help here. Can we work together so we help in a different kind of way? Let's partner up.
Well, what are some of the, let's just talk about men for a moment. Like, so what are some of the you worked with many, many, many men over the years. And it's great to hear a transition kind of out of like one-on-one personal therapy and into a broader message for people. So congratulations on that. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But so what are, with men, like what are some of those most common inner critic voices regarding men and masculinity? If
It's it's really is toxic. Like that's the way I hold it. Like it's you have to be the provider. It's you're the one in charge.
Right.
It's your responsibility. There's so much that we carry. It's you have to be tough and strong. You're not allowed to be weak or make a mistake. You're not allowed to be vulnerable.
That's a big one.
That's for sissies, pussies, whatever the hell it is.
Weak motherfucker. Snowflakes. That's the new one.
Snowflake, right? You're not allowed to be a snowflake. Like there is and here's the thing that's this cycle is the more we're critical of ourselves for compensating for being less than, not big, not strong, not a provider. What we end up doing is we do perpetuate shame. Our critic shames us. You're bad, you're wrong, you failed again. And it skyrockets our toxic masculinity because then we do try to overcompensate for the ways we're so inadequate. And then we become obnoxious assholes who are trying to compensate for feeling less than. Do you know what I mean? So it does perpetuate itself. The critic criticizes the vulnerability inside. The vulnerability feels more and more shame. And then you have to become narcissistic to compensate for your inadequacy. It's a vicious cycle. Do you know what I mean? And oftentimes, sorry, Will.
No, it's tough being a fucking man, dude. I'm over here. I'm like,
this is what.
Don't freaking cry, Will.
I'm sorry.
Jeez. But it is. And you know what? Here's the thing. And this is what I love about you guys, because men get a lot of negative press because of their toxic masculinity, their patriarchy, their abuse of power. They do. And nobody's unpacking what's underneath it. Because that's what we're talking about. That patriarchy, that dominating, that power hungry stuff is rooted in what we're talking about.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was, one of the questions I have is like the downstream downside or effects of like the unchecked inner critic. I mean, it could turn into that patriarchy, abuse of power, like total asshole. This is at the base level, is this inner critic in a lot of ways. Yeah.
100%. That's where it comes from. That is where it comes from, because it's just like it's layers and layers of feeling like shit, and finding new ways to compensate.
Well, it's also experience. I'd imagine experience after experience after experience. You know what I mean? You're just like, and you just keep moving forward without, it's like, what is it? I mean, we're having a conversation about obviously this inner critic, and we're kind of checking ourselves within it as well. I mean, because now we're instead of it being ignored and just pushing it aside and keeping it in the darkness, like we're like literally fucking putting the light of mindfulness and awareness onto it.
Yes.
Right. And this is Anyway, I just keep going, please. Yeah.
And learning and learning the origins of it and having some compassion.
There you go.
For where it came from. Like, oh my God, you learned how to be critical when you were yelled at as a kid.
Yeah.
And that was your only option to fight back. Was to use the ammunition that was put against you.
Yeah.
Wow, that makes so much sense. Of course you did. You did the best you could. You took what you had in your environment and you used it to try to survive. Right? So that's what we do, right? That's what we do.
Yeah. Example with my dad really quick. Like I love my dad. He's 85. He's 85, my dad. I mean, he's an older man, great heart. And I see him like just in, when I'm home, like he'll like, spill some milk or crack an egg on the counter or something like that. And he'll be like literally within instantaneously, he's like, "You're so stupid. How'd you do that?" I'm like, "Jesus, Dad," And then I'm thinking like from what you just said about how we just layer and stack and like experience upon experience. and I just, he can be very kind and very nice, but other times he's a grump, and it's just like, I mean, and this is just all of that, programming, never unchecked programming, basically no compassion, for, just who we are and how we're raised and the fathers we had and the trends, and the trauma, the transgenerational trauma that was like, it's in our fucking DNA. And here he is. And my mom's like, oh my God, he's so difficult to deal with. I mean, sometimes. And I'm like, wow.
Well,
so,
Will, that kind of makes me think, that's where your father's inner critic is being displayed outwardly. And that makes me think of a question for Frank. When our inner critic is displayed outwardly,
outward versus in,
right. Does that cause inner critics in others? And so I'll come back to, my announcement at the beginning. I'm doing this physique competition. And if you really peel back the onion,
right,
there's an inner critic in me saying, hey, my body is not good enough as it is. So I'm going to try to improve it so that I can stand up on stage. But really that's a reason behind my wanting to get in better shape. So how, as a father, do I stand up on stage and do this physique competition and not imply to my younger boy, who's 5, that it's not okay to not be 7% body fat? Like, is my doing that in a way going to develop an inner critic in him? Is something like an outward critic
It depends on the why you're doing it and how aware you are of why you're doing what you're doing, and the relationship you have in talking to your son about it. Because it could be I'm going to get on that stage and I'm going to show these motherfuckers that I am stronger than them because I really am inadequate inside. And so I'm just compensating. One option.
Not entirely wrong on that. Yeah.
This is men talking mindfulness, not true confessions.
I know. It is. True confessions on men talking
raw, uncut, and unapologetic.
God. Oh, God.
Or if you can do some work on those parts that feel inadequate, that feel the need to compensate because of the critic that you're inside, and say to your son, you know what, I realized I think I started this journey because I was trying to compensate for feeling not good about myself. But I've learned that through nutrition and through treating my body well and through being the best person I can be, I feel really good about myself, not because I'm winning, but because I'm actually treating myself kindly and I'm doing good things for myself. And it really makes me feel good. I don't care if I win, but what I do care about is that I am not critical. I am not trying to prove anything, but I'm actually being kind to myself. And it feels really good.
I'm going to take that.
That's like, then your son's like, oh, he doesn't care what other people think. Oh, he's not trying to compensate for being so inadequate. I feel when he yells at me, he's like, he's doing this like, cause it feels good and it's healthy. So it really is, why are you doing it? What is the relationship? And you can give a very positive message to your kids, depending on what your true motivation is and what you've also worked through. Like, look, there's nothing wrong with saying it started out this way and I've learned something and it's now it's ended up this way. Do you know what I mean?
And that is, I'm glad you brought that up, and we should come back to this in the physique episodes. That is something I've learned. And I will tell you, one more confession, and I did talk about this to Will, is I started it because I went to Hawaii, and a good friend of mine is a bodybuilder, and he was there, and he took his shirt off on the beach, and I was like, I'm not taking my shirt off around that guy. So there was a feeling of inadequacy, but now I've been training for 2 months, and I'm certainly not ready to step on stage, but I feel better in my skin. I feel healthier. I have more energy to play with my kids, and I'm experiencing far more benefits from it than just being like, oh, look at me. I've compensated for my inadequacy. So
so you got to share the journey. You've got to share the journey with your son so that he knows
Yeah.
Oh, it could start out this way, but look at how healthy this is. So don't just let him see you on stage. Share the journey so he knows the transformation.
Yeah, the importance of working towards a goal. I mean, like, fuck,
100%.
everybody can do that.
Right?
I mean, yeah. Wow.
Do you know, have you guys ever heard this? Like, then this is some of the resiliency literature.
Mm-hmm.
You don't say to your kids, you're so smart.
Mm.
Because in fact, when you say you're so smart, every time they fall short of smart, they feel like a failure.
You feel dumb.
Right.
Mm.
You say, you work so hard.
Proud of how hard you worked.
You work so hard, you know? And that's like, well, I could work hard. You know, like there's no failure in working hard. And that's actually what enables you to be resilient, is sticking to your goal and work at it.
Yeah. It's almost like a different kind of critic. You know, when you're saying, "Oh, you're so," not like you're criticizing them being smart, but it's like the other way.
A different kind of critic,
right?
There's it's an unrealistic standard,
right? Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, I got to be smart all the time, and then when I make a dumb mistake, it's like, oh, I'm fucking stupid. Like, you know, there it is again.
That's exactly.
Wow, that's great. It's like, you know, that I think that opposition is really important to know too. If you're like you're setting yourself up for failure, right? Or your kids, or you already have that. You know, that built in programmed into you. If you're like, oh, I need to be smarter, I need to be this, or I need to be perfect, I need to be excellent, you know, I need to be strong, I need to be beautiful. And it's like, and if you're not any of those things at one point, it's like, oh, I'm a piece of shit. Like, wow, good.
You've fallen right down. That's unrealistic expectations. Kids know what they're actually good at naturally. And when you say things that aren't true, it doesn't resonate.
Yeah.
And then they feel inadequate because my dad says I'm so smart, but actually I'm not. I'm kind of average in school. I can see the way I am among my peers. So when we give these false expectations, we are setting up the potential to fall hard and feel critical.
Yeah.
Man, can't win as a parent.
You know, but you can. Yes, you know.
Thank you, Frank.
And it is like taking responsibility, owning your shit, being vulnerable, you know, and making mistakes and not being critical about it, right? It's okay to make mistakes, this kind of thing. There is a way to do it differently. Like I do say this, I said this in the book, To Be Loved, like my greatest teachers in my life were my dad and my sons.
Wow.
Hands down. I learned so much of what not to do from my father as an abusive, narcissistic kind of critical guy. And then I internalized it and started doing it to my kids. Right. And then I hated myself. You want to talk about critic? Like I was suicidal because I hated doing what was done to me. Right. And then I was like, I'm not going to perpetuate this cycle. And then I did my work. And yeah, I do have very different relationships with my kids. It didn't start out that way, but it ended that way because I did the work and I didn't want to perpetuate that. And it's doable. That's my biggest thing is like hope, not it's horrible. It's like, you can do this. Like we can all do this. But we have to own our shit. We have to take responsibility and look at our vulnerability.
Well, where's one of the first place to start with, you know, owning your shit, you know, taking responsibility? Like, where do we be? You know, if I'm just listening to this content for the first time, right, and be like, oh, because like somehow I've gotten awoken to this inner critic, or my wife, girlfriend, someone said like, hey, you got to listen to this, and thank you for everybody that's saying that, you know, but it's you know, so where does that person begin? On this journey of healing from this inner critic and changing it into something that's more transformative and positive?
Here's what I say. I kind of talk about busting big behaviors.
Okay.
Like, what do you have a big behavior? What's a big behavior? Where are you having a strong reaction? What is, you know, is it a critic? Are you critical? Are you angry? Are you shut down? Like, you've got to identify your big behaviors. This one, we're talking about critic. And the awareness of it is the first step. Like, oh, I am critical, because our tendency is to like push it away and drink it away or do whatever to get rid of it, because it actually makes us feel bad. So first is the awareness of your big behavior. Like, okay, I am critical. Oh, I do know what that is. And then you get curious about the origins. So you've got to identify it. Yeah. Most people don't even identify it. This podcast is making, I don't know, 80% of the people, I don't say, I guess I do have a critic.
Right.
Like maybe we're bringing awareness. Yeah. That is the first step, right? That's the first step, is awareness. That's not a small thing.
Right.
And then it's got to be curious about the origins. Where did I learn this from? What is it trying to do? How could we do it differently? Like there is a process, and it usually involves healing childhood trauma.
What if we contextualize a little bit instead of we're kind of talking, high level? One thing that a lot of people, I'm sure Frank, John, myself, like that have definitely experienced is imposter syndrome. So could we maybe use imposter syndrome as a way to kind of look at this inner critic and then, see the different aspects of it to help us to kind of transcend? Is that cool?
It gives me awful feelings.
Talk to me, Frank. Tell me what's going on inside, Frank. Right? Say more, Frank. Please. You're on the fucking couch now, Frank. Okay. This is confessions. Yeah, your turn.
My turn. Oh, I can feel it. When you said that, Will, I feel it.
There you go. Right. Yes.
Okay? I
go
feel
deeper, Frank.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like I wanted to be loved by my father my whole life. I wanted to be loved by my father my whole life. And I did everything in my power to get that. And what I was good at wasn't football. I was good at getting A's and doing well in school. So my whole thrust of my adult life was success, success, success. You don't become a trauma expert and go to Harvard for nothing. Okay, that wasn't just fun. It was all driven by my desperate desire to be loved by my dad. I didn't realize it at the time. I was just driven, right? And so there's this way that when I'm an adult, I don't feel this way now, but for many years I did, decades. Oh my God, you're so good. You're so amazing. You went to Harvard. You're an expert. I felt like an imposter. I was like, I am not that. I'm a worthless piece of shit whose father doesn't love him. Right? So for years, I was like striving for this ideal that I felt like an imposter. Other people saw me differently than I saw myself, because I was like doing everything in my power to be successful so he would love me. Do you know what I mean? And I felt like an imposter. I don't anymore. Now I'm kind of like, yeah, I am smart. I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I am smart. Like I can own the reality now instead of the desire, which was rooted in inadequacy. Do you get that? So when you say imposter syndrome, I'm like, I lived that for a long time.
The inadequacy of not being recognized and seen by your dad, and be like, Frank, you're a great son. You're doing a great job. Like, I understand you can't throw a fucking football, but you can definitely read a book. You know what I mean? Like, right?
Yeah, see me, like being seen. Right. Being seen. We have this one funny thing. My brother and I, he's 2 years younger than me, like best friend in the world. My brother and I are just like, oh my God, what an amazing. We were like traumatically bonded. Like we were with each other through everything. Yeah. And when my dad got older and I was getting success and I was getting this notoriety, he all of a sudden popped out, I told you you'd be successful. I knew you'd be successful. Wow. He'd say, you're just like me. I told you you'd be successful. And my brother called me on the phone and he's like, geez, Frank, I don't remember Dad saying you'd be successful. He's like, I remembered him calling you a worthless piece of shit.
Oh my God. Oh, wow.
And I was like, it was that moment. Like my brother was there He's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
Sorry to laugh.
but
I see
like,
the irony.
it was this like, and it was so like when I was successful, he didn't say, "Oh my God, I am so proud of you. You're an incredible human being." He was like, "I told you you'd be successful.
You're that way
Like
because I told you."
he took responsibility for my success. I told you you'd be successful. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
So it was that whole thing. And my brother, thank goodness, it was kind of like my brother was like, I don't remember that way, you know. But I will say, and this was part of the beauty for me of feeling really good and loving myself was towards the end of my dad's life, and I could feel this. All of his defenses broke down towards the end of his life, and I did feel love from him at the end. Genuine, real love. Like I did. At the end, like he's like, he said to me, you know, I wasn't the father you needed and wanted.
Damn.
But I always loved you. And at that point I felt it. You know, so this whole full cycle, it was a full circle moment for me around, wow, it wasn't getting into Harvard that made this happen. Right. You know, it was him getting vulnerable with who he is and him being vulnerable with me. And I'll say, guys, me doing enough work to be able to receive his love. It's both.
Right. As it is.
You know, because in the many years I hated him and I was not receptive to anything he was able to say. He wasn't able to say much and I wasn't receptive to hearing it. But with both of us changing, and it always doesn't work this way, but both of us changed. He was able to be vulnerable and express his true love. And I was able to be open and receptive to feeling it. So I feel so fortunate to have had that kind of corrective experience, you know, and go ahead.
No, I mean, that corrective experience that I imagine would help you to manage or let go or release or just soften some of those critics, right? So what if someone doesn't have that? What if someone's father's already dead? What if, like, you know what I mean? Like, where do you go from there? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, I love this story. Your story, that's a great story, Frank. And then you know, what happens?
Here's the thing. It's interesting because I was going to say that's exactly what happened to me. I was so surprised after I was able to, he was able to express his love and I was able to receive it. I was like, my father's a human and so am I. Like I forgave my critic softened. I'm like, you're not a bad person. And we both tried our best. So my critic melted with love and connection. Right?
Of course.
My critic melted with love and connection. Now, the thing I'll say about it, and it's a really good question, Will, because I contemplate this a lot. I think I was given this experience to be able to teach people of what is possible. I'm so grateful for my trauma history now, because if I hadn't had it, I would never be here.
I remember, and I had a loop in my head sometimes. It's like, you don't become a trauma therapist if you don't experience some trauma, is what you said in our first Shuck and Show.
Exactly what. Yeah,
right.
I'm so grateful now because I'm not carrying the pain anymore. I've healed from it.
Right.
This question you ask is a really important one for me because I was in therapy. I've been in therapy for 35 years, like a shit ass long time, right? And shit ass long time. There was a lot of money and a lot of years in therapy. And I wasn't able to fully let it go. I wasn't able to fully let go of my trauma history on my own. I wasn't. Now, are people capable? Was I better? Did my life improve? Did I develop a great family and have great kids? Yes. So the quality of my life was so much better as a result of my therapy. But it wasn't until we had that relational repair that truly freed me. Now, the thing, I don't want to say, no, you can't ever have it unless you have that. The thing that I'm aware of is if you don't have that relational repair with the person who harmed you, you can have it with other people in your life.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
Okay.
say. Yeah. Well, I mean, what I'm learning about more community, and because you said love,
Yes.
connection, and belonging.
Yes.
Like if you get in
Yes.
to like with a
Yeah.
group of men
Yeah.
and just being
Yeah.
seen by men, and being appreciated by men.
Right.
This is a win.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And I'll tell you, like, and I've said this time and time again, like, I had a couple rounds of repeating my shit, like married a woman. I was my abusive father with her, came out, was with a guy. He was abusive to me. I met my current husband. It's a really reparative relationship. I have healed so much to be in a safe relationship with a guy, a guy. That's what works for me, right?
Yeah.
But that relationship has been so healing. And it wasn't necessarily related to my father. It was healthy enough to choose something different and healthy enough to show up differently. So I'm not going to say you can never heal unless you repair it with the original object, because I don't agree with that. And I don't believe that. But you do have to have corrective experiences with relationships in order to elevate your healing and release the trauma you're carrying.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because Will, you asked the question that I was going to ask, or at least similar. I don't believe that I have such a strong internal critic from my parents. I had loving parents.
Yeah.
They supported me.
Yeah.
But, I moved to the States from South Africa when I was 7.
Yeah.
I was made fun of for years in school.
That's right.
And then I couldn't throw a football either, Frank. I still can't. And well, good for you, man. Good. Now you're becoming my critic. Well, good for you, man. Anyhow, so I'll be honest. The internal critic wasn't developed by my family, but it was developed by the kids on the school playground, right?
100%.
I ran track and cross country. I was called the bird chest. So that inner critic was developed by the football team, right? The football team, they had the pretty girls, where I was the runner and didn't have the pretty girls. So I was similar to you. I wasn't trying to prove to my dad, hey, I went to Harvard, I became smart. But I was trying to prove to these other kids, hey, I went to the Naval Academy, I became a Navy SEAL, I did all this macho stuff.
Right.
But I'm not going to go back and seek them out.
Right.
And look to have that corrective, what was a corrective action, corrective experience with these guys. But I have corrective experiences with Will.
Yes.
I have corrective experiences with people like you that are coming on the show.
That's right.
I have corrective experiences with the men that I surround myself with. So I love that you said that. I was like, how am I going to track all these kids down and be like, hey.
No, I don't think that's necessary, obviously. Right. I was grateful that I was able to have the corrective experience with the original object. I don't think it has to happen. The other thing I'm going to say about this, John, is it brings up this issue like nobody's ever fully healed. It's not a, oh, good, I had this thing with my dad, so I'm done and I'm fully healed from the trauma. I've arrived. No. So this, every time... And this is for me, this is the other thing I'm doing in this new program is like I'm combining the benefits of psychotherapy, the knowledge of neuroscience, and the advantages of coaching.
Oh, wow.
And the reason that I'm putting them all together is this.
Trifecta.
Psychotherapy focuses on the history and the origin. Mm-hmm. Neuroscience tells us useful information. Coaching focuses on doing it differently in the present.
Love it.
And we need all of it, not just one version of that. So all these, you do need to go back and you do need to visit. Don't get stuck there. Mm-hmm. Right? And there are ways to release the pain we carry. There's real ways to do that. And coaching really informs, you have to have moments of corrective experience in the present. Like, so you're talking about all these corrective experiences that help us heal. And it's an elevation. The way I think about it is this. You go back and you visit, you release some of it, and then you elevate. And then you do something different in your life. You have a corrective experience, and then you elevate. And then you do, and then you elevate. So each time each time we have a corrective experience or release something, we're elevating, I think, our energy level. We rise,
Right.
you get to this next level, and it's going to happen again. So, like, it's never done, right? And
Right.
so, this thing you're doing in August or whenever it is,
Yeah.
you want to
August.
make it a corrective experience. You want to make as much, so you don't have to go visit, call up all the people who bullied you on the playground, but
Watch me
be
on stage.
mindful. What am I holding from that?
Right.
What am I still carrying? What needs to be witnessed? What do I need to release from my history so that I can do this experience differently and elevate?
Right.
Right. So we want to pay attention to all of it. So it's not just I'm going to compensate.
Right.
It's that I'm going to actually use this as an opportunity for healing and growth and elevation.
I love that. Well,
that's why I like the way you broke it down. It
Yeah.
requires doing. It requires different
Yes,
action.
it
It's not the
does.
same loop. It's not like I'm just going to keep doing the same things every day and expect things
Yeah.
to change. It's like it requires a certain amount of personal inventory, right? It's like something's not fucking working here.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable, maybe asking for help, probably a good thing to do.
Yes.
Right? And then taking the change to do the corrective measure, elevating, being there with that, seeing the new horizons, right? And then something comes up again. And I think it's also the courage of that, Frank, is one thing that I feel is maybe we need to speak of. It's like it takes courage to do this,
100%.
a lot. I mean, and one way that I have seen that I find more courage is, we break new ground a lot. I feel, John, with me and you, our relationship, the podcast, because we have each other, right? And I just feel a greater sense of energy, a greater sense of power, a greater sense of my heart, because I'm in unity. I'm in I'm talking to different people. I'm talking to John. We're growing this podcast. Like I'm doing this in New York as much as I can as well. But it's just like getting together, and it's like that whole principle of like when two minds come together, third mind is formed, or two entities or two heart comes together, there's a third one that's formed. It's more energy, it's more power, and we can move forward, I feel, with more courage. And to really help us to overcome this stuff. And what also it's in that when you are connecting with other people, it's like, I talk to myself that way too.
Yes.
And I think just even hearing, the fact that other people are treating themselves like, like a piece of shit. It's like, oh, wait, why are we doing this? So
you know what? There was a study, and I'm not going to be able to quote it, which is fine, but that people on the surface think women are so much more relational than men. Like women are relational and men are Neanderthals. And the reality is that men crave and desire closeness and connection just as much, if not more, than women do. And men are capable of long-term, intimate relationships with each other. But it does take more energy and effort because it's counteracting what we've been fed through culture and society, right? And the roles of masculinity versus the roles of femininity, right? So that, and you just did a beautiful job of I was like, look at how intimate and relational this guy is talking about a relationship with his dear friend, right? I'm like, this is a relational person who wants intimacy, who's willing to do the work and make himself vulnerable to have an intimate relationship. Men do that, and men want that. And, society and culture is like, oh, that's for women. The whole men are from Mars, women, men are from Venus, women are from Mars. It's like women want to talk so that men can have sex. It's like, no, actually, men want to talk and women want to talk, and actually both of them want to have sex.
We all want to be fucking.
Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So, but that there is this way that, oh, we don't want that stuff. Oh, that's for women. It's not true. We want to be seen. We want to be known. We want intimacy too, just as much as women. So these cultural messages that people buy into are not really accurate.
Yeah, bullshit.
It is bullshit. It really is.
Completely. Yeah.
Well, if someone's listening to our show and they wanted to walk away with I don't know the three best strategies to counter or to work with, because you said you don't want to push back against it, you don't want to battle it, you want to befriend it, if you will.
Here's what else I'm gonna do 6.
Perfect, even better.
I'm gonna do the 3 around the critic and then the 3 around the healing. That's
Okay.
what I say.
Beautiful.
So around the critic, it is awareness, it is curiosity and compassion, and it is partnering to do it different.
There you go.
Okay. Awareness. Wow, I have a critical voice.
Yeah.
The curiosity of the origin of where this comes from. And then the agreement to partner with the critic and do it differently. So those would be the 3 things I'd say around the critic. Okay. Now, what typically happens with that inquiry and that curiosity is, what is the origins? Who was hurt? Like, who was the victim of the perpetrator that you internalize? Because then the healing the wound is the second 3. And it's visit the past, let it share what it's holding, have a corrective experience, and then release the pain. So there is the healing process. There's the be aware of the critic, develop a good relationship with the critic, and there's the healing the pain that's underneath the critic. Because we can't just move forward without healing the past, because otherwise we're driven to fix it all the time. So that healing piece is like, all right, who was on the playground? Who did carry the pain and the humiliation and the shame of being bullied? And can that part of me who had that experience share it with me or with somebody who's close to me? Can it have a corrective experience? Can it feel good about itself, seen and known and loved? And then it can release the pain it carries. So that is a piece, guys, that a lot of people don't want to go to because it's painful and don't know is possible. We don't have to carry the energy that we absorbed. We don't have to carry the energy we absorbed as a result of shitty things we've been through.
Right. Yeah, that sometimes are no fault of our own. Just because
most of the time, most of the time, it's no fault of our own.
Right.
It's the fault of the person who did it and didn't take responsibility for it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at the way you spoke of just healing from it, the amount of intimacy and vulnerability required within, in order to do that, in order to just, instead of wanting to punch the fucking first person that called you bird-chested, John, right? Like, you know what I mean?
I did, actually. I did punch him.
You did fucking punch him?
That's the first response. That's the first response.
Well, right. Well, I'm sorry. What I'm saying, John did fucking punch him. Anyway.
I'm not even kidding.
But you were a kid.
Yeah. Right. Well, I mean, just like, instead of beating it away, instead of like, pushing it away and trying to move forward with the tough guy, right? Just really going on the inside. I guess this is going to take some help, though. You mentioned your 3 levels of like, the biology, the psychology, and the coaching. And it's you, like, for anybody that really wants to do this work, I guess that's really what's required.
Here's the thing. I'll tell you, I'm working on the next book deal. I know this is where my future is. I've created the program. I know this program is helping people outside of psychotherapy because there's not enough therapists in the world to heal all the trauma that's available in the world.
No, sure.
Okay. And I'm not trashing therapists. I'm saying we also need a program here for people who can't afford it and don't have the means to go to a therapist. So I am creating this program, to help people utilize the benefits of psychotherapy, understand their trauma history, and create a program for people to do healing. I'm going to have an online community. I'm going to have retreats, in-person retreats. I really am committed to bringing trauma healing to the general public because we need it. We need it. So that's what I'm doing for the next phase of my life.
Well, tell us more about that, Frank. Like, we're going to close out here in a couple minutes, but like, what are you up to? Like, I mean, really excited. And hey, any way John and I can help. We're growing our platform just to get the word out for your book, but even the retreats and stuff like that. Like, we would love to be a part of that or love to help you fill that up because there is a massive, massive, massive fucking need to heal in the way that you're speaking about. And thankfully, more people are willing to have this conversation to realize, like, you know what, I don't have to suffer like this.
Yeah. The two things. So two things, and thank you for that. And we'll stay connected for sure, because after this book, my previous book, the memoir To Be Loved, which we talked about before, I have a production company now, Trauma Informed Media, and that's amazing. That book back there, it's being turned into a movie.
Oh, wow.
I'm going to Sundance Film Festival, pitch it. I just got my first investment in the movie. I've got a screenwriter. I've got a director. So To Be Loved will be a movie, which is bringing trauma awareness to the world, right? So that's a general public offering. I'm super excited about that.
Yeah.
And then I'm creating this new program, which is just, I got clear on the concept. I need to set up the team to help me actualize it. But right now I'm calling it Cycle Breakers. Maybe it's going to be called something else. Like I loved your, the branding. Cycle Breakers. That's right. And it's a fusion of, I'm calling it Fusion PNC, a fusion of psychotherapy, neuroscience, and coaching. And I'm really developing a program. People are going to do an assessment, a questionnaire. They're going to see what their traumas are. And I'm going to give a suggested program. They can download, working on behaviors one at a time. I want people to take back power of their treatment. Right now, insurance companies and therapists or coaches are in charge of your treatment. I want people to go to a therapist and say, I need 10 sessions of cognitive behavior therapy. I would like 5 sessions of EMDR. I want 6 sessions of IFS. Like, I want people to be in charge of their healing journey and let them tell you what they need, as opposed to the insurance company dictating it, because then you're just disempowered again. And like, hey, I want a community, I want to create a community, a peer support community, so that people have somebody to share and have a corrective experience with. And then these retreats, in-person retreats, because when you're 5 days away somewhere doing personal work, you can get a lot of shit done. That's the program, and I'm super excited.
We're excited for you. We're excited for this is like, it's so nice. Like, it's interesting in the years that we've produced in this podcast, the last 4 or 5 years, to like how this conversation is changing as far as like mental health, masculinity, and how to, community, all this stuff it's changing. I feel pretty rapidly too. I mean, maybe we're just continually getting in a deeper bubble here because we're doing this work all the time, but I don't think that's the case. Like, more people are open to meditation, to breathing, to fucking like cold plunging, to, to having nature experiences, to having like going on the inside. And it's like, we've been on, I feel in some ways the forefront of this, and
you're part of the change. I was going to say the reason it's changing is because you guys are part of the change. I mean, it's true.
Well, thank you, Frank.
Thank you.
We're going to wrap it up here. But Frank, it's always amazing to have you on here.
So good.
I always feel like I've been through a therapy session with you. And I'm going to
feel
take
attacked.
so many.
I felt attacked today. Okay.
Well, hey, you attacked me in my lack of being able to throw a football as well.
Right.
So.
And
I was going to
your
say,
bird
okay,
chest.
mister, I could throw a football.
But it's also so much fun always. I walk away energized from these. But we'll wrap it up here. Frank, again, thank you so much for our audience. Before we jump into our closing practice, thank you all for joining us. If you got something out of this episode, which I'm sure did, please share it with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and share it with your inner critic. I think, take a look at that and see how you can grow from this.
Well played.
So that said, Will, I'll throw it over you to wrap it up with a closing practice and wrap it up in a bow, my friend.
Let's just, it's amazing what can happen if you just take 3 breaths. And maybe this will help to relax the inner critic and just realize that that's just a motherfucking voice in my head that, or like, it's more than that. I'm sorry, Frank. I'm belittling our conversation. Embrace it. Embrace. Have the courage to see it, to be with it, and, maybe it takes to soften the mind and soften, the fist that might come up, that when the inner critic arises, it's just calming yourself down. And we're just going to take a few breaths and do that. So big breath. So we're going to start with exhale first. So push the breath out your mouth like you're kind of blowing out a candle, and really try to like feel something in this space as you exhale. And let's take a nice big inhale, fill all the way up through your nose, big belly breath, and then all the way up into the chest and even into the sinus cavity in your head, and let that breath go. And get heavier with those exhales. And again, in, big, beautiful breath. Let it out again. Maybe melt that tension in your face, jaw, shoulders, right? And one more. Inhale. Let that go away. And if you need some more, take more. We're going to end this little breath session right now. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, John. Thank you, our audience, for listening, for making this possible. Frank, I'm so excited for what you're doing and what's coming up. So it's great to have you back. I mean, I did call you a friend of the show in the beginning. Hopefully I'm not making an assumption.
I'm in.
Exactly. There you go. Boom. Thanks, Frank. Thanks, John. Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you all.
Fucking kick ass, everybody. Enjoy.
Till next time. Take care.
Peace, everybody.
Peace.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.